All right, good morning, everyone. This is Liz Smith, PrairieCat's Training and Outreach Coordinator. Thank you for joining us today. We also have Chelsea online from PrairieCat who will help with the chat or other questions that may come up as well. It's a small group of us today, so if you have questions, feel free to unmute yourself and ask or put it in the chat and we'll address it as we can. This is just going to be a short demo of the new PrairieCat website, show you some new features and point out where some important member information is. This is being recorded, so you'll be able to share it as needed or review it later. So I'll send out the recording link after the session once it's done. All right, so you should be seeing my screen here, the new support site. The URL stayed the same, support.prairiecat.info. From the home page here, you'll see immediately this quick system status bar. And that shows you the status of Sierra, Encore, and e-commerce. If they're having issues, we would change that status to a little red bar. If Sierra was down, for example, or e-commerce wasn't working, it would then be a little red dot. So if you're having issues, you could go to the site and at a glance, see if it's already been noted as a system-wide issue. Also from the home page, you have this help desk block here, which has the PrairieCat support phone number. And then also, if you select contact help desk, you'll get to the help page. And from here, if you select submit a ticket, you'll get to the PrairieCat ticketing system, which is this page for those that frequently submit tickets. Also the phone number again. Something that is a new feature on the help page is this known issues block. So the known issues are issues related to PrairieCat services, Sierra, other support that we have recorded and are addressing. So if once again you're having a problem, you could go to the help page and see the known issues if it's already been reported. That way it'll save 3 or 4 people from submitting the same help desk ticket. From here, it defaults to any open tickets. So this known issue is that some statistics and reports are missing from the migration. So we're working our way through and adding those. So that is what that is about. You can also select view issue queue. And if you change this to any, you'll get previous issues and their status. So if for whatever reason you wanted to look at closed issues, you could do that as well. So the help page, that pretty much covers that. You can also see on the side here, critical support hours. So that's after on-call hours. Those are listed there for your reference. And back at the home page, if you scroll down, you'll see the news block, which PrairieCat staff post relevant member information, such as a recent go live, the IT support project that we've been working on. Also new to the website is this calendar block here. So this displays upcoming events. So you can see here, we're in our new website demo right now. And then you can see the next events that are coming up in the calendar. If you select more events, you'll get a listing of all the events. So I'll show you that in just a little bit. Also from the home page, there's a members block. This is where we'll post special projects like Vega Discover or other projects or events that we want to draw a little bit more attention to, so that this block may change a couple times a year or quarterly as new things come up. Just another way to promote more information to the membership. And then if you scroll down, you'll see this quick links block at the bottom here. This will be really useful for members. So from here, you can access statistics and reports after logging in. You can get the link to your PrairieCat email, the Microsoft email accounts, to get your paging list. Also, the link to Talent LMS. Forums, which is a new feature on the website. You have to be logged in to access. And then the link to the catalog, which right now is linked out to Encore. Once we are using Vega as the primary production catalog, then that link will be updated to Vega. Also is the quick library lookup. So if you want to figure out what Moline's delivery code is, for example, you could search for Moline and then see those details here. Alternatively, you can select the library and get a little bit more information. So back at the home page, you can access the help desk, see upcoming events and news, and then access all of these quick links here at the bottom. And then we can dive into some of the other pages a little bit more. And at this point, I am going to log in so I can show you the full features of the sites. The pages that you need to log into are anything under this resources menu here. Also, if you want to subscribe to any mailing list, you'll be prompted to log in. And if you want to access any member forums, you'll be prompted to log in. Other than that, we've really tried to keep the information readily accessible. So for example, events and meetings, you don't need to log in to access that information. So I'm going to show you how members can log in first. If you try to access a page, it's going to prompt you, right, to log in. Alternatively, you can select login from the upper right corner. So members are going to select login with your L2 account, this purple button right here. It's going to direct you to L2. You'll enter your L2 email and password and select login, and then it's going to automatically redirect you back to the PrairieCat site. If you do not have an L2 account or you have a new staff person who does not yet have an L2 account, they can select create an account from L2, or if you have issues with your account, there's a forgot password option as well. There's also an L2 help and contact. So if those two, create an account and forgot password, aren't helping you, then you can contact L2 help and get your L2 account sorted. All right. So I am going to log in with a test member account here so you can see. All right, so I'm now logged in as a member. And from here, you could navigate to any of these different menus here. Our members tab is general member information. Things that might be of wider interest is the member directory, which is the same function as the quick library lookup. If you select the member directory, you get the full listing of all of PrairieCat members. You can search by library name or code. So I'm not very good with all my Sierra codes, but for example, if you wanted to search for AN, it's doing just a general search here, but it'll limit it a little bit. So let's say I was looking for Andalusia, that's the Sierra code for them. Or you can search by library name or city as well. You can also use these fields over here to resort based on these various codes and barcode prefix or ILDS stop. So that's another tool at your disposal for the member directory. This information is pulled from L2. So if you notice an error or something like that, it needs to be fixed on the L2 side. I'll also note the Vega Discover catalog links are available from here as well. So if you're a library that needs to grab your URL for that, you can find it here. All right, also from the members menu, you can find information about committees and user groups, submit a site visit request, and view member forums. So this is a new feature on the website. So this is intended for library to library, peer-to-peer discussions around library service and other PrairieCat related topics. So this is something that's new and we'll continue to promote to the membership as time goes on. Right now, we have set up some general forums that we thought people might be interested in. So you can view those here. And then as more members begin to use them, they'll become more useful for people. So as a logged in member, you can view forums. So if you're just kind of browsing and curious what other people are talking about, you can do that. These were examples that I had set up. So if somebody else had commented, you could review what other people had done for presenters, for example. You could also add a new topic. So maybe you wanted to get information from other libraries about what mobile app they use for summer reading sign up. So you select that add, if I did that too quick, add new forum topic. You would type in
Hey Liz, you lost sound.
can you hear me now?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Sorry, it's that double. I'm using my old headset and there's a mute button on the headset itself. So sometimes it bumps and then it mutes. So apologies. Did we finish up the forums? Everyone heard everything about that?
I think so. You added something, and right when you added the mobile app is like after you hit add it does you lost sound.
Okay. So if you want to add a new forum topic, you can select this purple button here. You just put in your topic subject at the top, select the forum, add the content, and then hit save, and that will post to the forum. All right, and then the news tab is the next menu item. You can subscribe to mailing lists that are open here, subscribe to the PrairieCat newsletter, and if you select the news menu, you'll get the full listing of news articles. So if you were looking for an older article, you could scroll through and find it there. Next, we have events and meetings. So you can select events and meetings, or you can select an event directly from the calendar feed or more events, and you'll kind of get to the same spot. So I'm going to go directly to events and meetings. This is going to be the full listing of upcoming PrairieCat meetings that are scheduled. Also, any trainings or events that we have scheduled. You can use the filters at the top here. So if you were looking for any trainings that are scheduled, you could see those here. You can use the reset button certainly to reset if you've set any filters, or maybe you're looking for all the admin council meetings that are scheduled. So then you could see those here. And if you want to get more information or register for a meeting, you simply select the meeting and you'll get this event detail page. So it's going to give you, the basic details of the meeting, brief description, the L2 registration link if it's an in-person meeting. So this meeting is in person. So you would select L2, and then as a member, you would already be logged into L2. So that's going to take you directly to the page. I'm using a test account, so I'm not connected to my L2 account right now. Or if there's a Zoom, that would also be provided. And you can see the CERC meeting, for example, is a Zoom only meeting. So the Zoom registration link is right there and you can register for that meeting. Back to the events and meetings page. The meeting documents for the meetings are also going to be posted on that events details page. So for example, these upcoming meetings don't have their documents posted yet, but they will soon. And if you want to see a past event or meeting, you can select past events and meetings. And for example, when's the last? Let's do the most recent admin council meeting. You can see the agenda, packet, and minutes all posted here. So you just select those to download. And the past events also has the same filters. So if you were interested in seeing all the past finance committee meetings or something and looking at the minutes, you could access those here. I will say because of the migration, May 16th is the meetings that we've gone back to, right? So as far as the governance documents under the governance page, you can access an archive of past meeting documents. So those are available for these governance related meetings. You can always ask if it's like CERC or tech, you can ask the committee leads on those if you were interested in seeing something that was not posted. And then also under events and meetings, we have the Pug Day information. So these other menus here are services, which gives a brief overview of the different services PrairieCat provides. Under marketing material. Did I lose sound again?
No, you didn't.
Okay.
But real quick, there is a question. I'm just going to answer it real quick. Elena, as far as the meeting documents on the website, they are only going back to January. If you would like anything further back, they're all saved. We just are not focusing on adding those to the actual website right now. So if you need something, you contact me.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. And for other library staff, you can always put in a help desk if you're looking for a meeting document that's more than 6 months old at this point. All right, so services, kind of a general overview of the services PrairieCats provide. Something that might be useful for members is marketing materials. So this is, as you can see, downloads available to you on the mobile app, General Consortium, PrairieCat logos, Vega Discover, and we'll continue to add as we have more. The training menu has information about the training that PrairieCat offers. On the overview page, this is a great place to start if you are onboarding new staff, kind of get all of your logins and accounts lined up before you start on training, since you'll need your L2 login to access the PrairieCat support site, and then Talent LMS is a separate login. I will note right now, we're going to be working on updating the resources on the Talent LMS side so that it's consistent with the website. That's the next phase of this project. And then you can find more information specific to type of library or new directors, information on item entry certification. Online courses on Talent LMS takes you straight to Talent LMS, and a request on demand training form there. All right, and then I'm going to skip over resources and do that last because there's a lot of information there. And then we're just going to look at the about page real quick. This is general PrairieCat information about us as an organization. Budget and finance, this is where you can find budget, Appendix A, member fees. And we do have the previous years posted through 2019. The governance page is going to give you information about delegates assembly, your alternates list, admin council, and who's on admin council in their emails. And then we have our governing and legal documents at the bottom here. So the IGA, general policy manual, the bylaws, and strategic plan. We also have our privacy policy, the PrairieCat staff list and contact information, and some legal compliance things that we're required to post. All right. So the resources menu, this section you have to be logged in to access. This is where you're going to find all of the member only information, such as the codes list that you can find here and download those depending on your needs. We also have all of our web forms here organized by content type, technology support, circulation, cataloging, and tech services. So all of those web forms are here. And when you submit a web form, it automatically creates a help desk ticket. So it goes in the right queue and the right people are notified. But it just allows us to collect very specific information when you submit that. So that's why that's useful for us. And then we also have statistics and reports. So this is where you're going to access statistics and reports. So you can scroll, find what you want. You can also use the filter. Maybe you want to find April of 2023. So you can find those reports here, and then you just download what you need. We are going to refine this filter a little bit. So hopefully you'll see some improvements there in the next couple weeks. And then we do have all of the reports updated through 2020, most of 2022. So for your immediate needs, the reports for the past 6 months to a year are updated in there. And then as you get into further away from where we are right now in time, we have a little bit more cleanup to do, I should say. So we just need to rename, reorganize, and make sure everything got migrated correctly. So if you have a report that you're looking for that is from an older time period and you can't find it, just put in a help desk. And then once we have everything set and organized, we'll send out an announcement. Also from the resources, so we talked about codes, forms, stats and reports. There's also software downloads. So this is instructions and files on how to download like offline circ, net support notify, express line information. So this is all kind of gathered here for your use. And then we have the main policies and procedures section. So once again, you can get there from resources and select policies and procedures. And this is going to be all of the PrairieCat documentation. So prior to migrating to the new sites, we had a lot of individual PDFs and training manuals and policy manuals and text bulletins and different how-tos. So we've consolidated it into one documentation area. So it does look a little bit different from the main site, but you can navigate back to any part of the main site by using the menu bar at the top, or certainly this breadcrumb up here. So from here, you can browse for what you're looking for based on these different categories. So circulation, for example, it's going to give you circulation policies right at the top. Same for tech services. You'll have tech services policies right at the top, and then you can dig down into these other categories. And let's say in circulation, you're wanting to get a little bit information about patron records. So you click there, and then you can browse and, all right, I was wondering about the care of name. So you can click that and see that information here. You can also page through at the bottom here. So maybe you're reviewing the policies and you really want to take your time and look through every policy. You can click through at the bottom as you read through them. Or you can certainly just browse and find what you're looking for. Alternatively, you can do a search. So maybe I'm looking for information on how to place a hold. And this is searching the entire website, not just this documentation page. But typically it's going to bring back the results that you're looking for. And let's say you're actually interested in more information on how to place book club holds. So you select that and you get your page on book club holds. So hopefully that will be a lot easier for folks. I know it'll, take a little bit of time to get used to how it's organized. Also, there's information here on Create List and Decision Center, more details on the reports that PrairieCat staff process. For folks that use the ILL module, there's documentation there as well. So it should be a really great tool for people. And let's go back to the home page here. So we reviewed, and you can also obviously search from up here if you want to. The main functions of the site. Are there any questions I can answer or something that you would like to see or things that you're looking for that you haven't been able to find yet? All right, well, if you think of any questions, certainly just let us know. Hopefully it's user friendly and you can kind of just poke around and find what you need. But if you do have any questions, just put in a help desk and we will work with you. All right. Well, thank you all, and I hope you guys have a good rest of your day. All right, and I'll send this recording out over the next day or two as well. Thanks, guys. Bye.